This former professional sportsman and model had a pristine way of diving into cinema. A man with many skills, including a muscular physique ready to send bad guys to sleep, a sassy and sarcastic sense of humor. This gravelly British voice is one of Hollywood's most bankable stars in action-packed movies.
I've loved working with Jason. He's such a sweetheart and a really talented actor.
A leading man for both American and international directors in super blockbuster franchises. This humble buzz-cut man truly knows the value of hard work.
He thinks that stunt people risk their lives to bring a spectacle on the big screen, and they deserve to be acknowledged.
Who said a drama diploma was necessary to be a movie star?
Jason has a lot more talent than he gives himself credit for.
From his British hometown streets to eventful Hollywood projects. Let's take a close-up on Jason Statham.
Jason Statham was born July 26, 1967 in Shirebrook, Derbyshire, England. His mother Eileen is a former dancer, and his father Barry did a lot of different things. He was a street merchant, he was a coal miner, he was a house painter for a while, and he even worked as a lounge singer in the Canary Island. Between the dancing mom and the singing dad, Jason had performing in his blood. Jason gets a lot of his athleticism from his father, who was a former boxer and a gymnast. It paid off because soon after he went into diving, and now he uses all his athleticism to delight us on the movie screen. Jason Statham spent 12 years on the British national diving team. He was a very good diver. He competed in the 10-meter platform and the 3-meter springboard, and at one point he was rated in the top 12 divers in the world. He wanted to compete in the Olympics, and he came very close 3 different times, 1988, 92, and 96. But in all of those trials, he placed 3rd, and only the top 2 divers get to go on to the Olympics. One day in the early 90s, Jason Statham is training as a diver at a place called the Crystal Palace National Sports Center. And there's a modeling scout there. They work for a company called Sports Promotions, and they specialize in athletic models. Well, this scout thought Jason would be a perfect model. So Jason signed with the company, and before you know it, he was booking major campaigns for companies like Tommy Hilfiger, Levi's, and especially French Connection. French Connection was a big brand for him. He was sort of the face of them for a while. Before becoming an actor, Jason worked primarily as a street merchant. He would sell jewelry and things on the street. So when Jason was selling things on the street, it was usually things that looked expensive but weren't expensive, or they might have even been stolen. So it would have been like fancy perfumes or really nice looking jewelry that was actually kind of cheap, but he would charm people into thinking it was fabulous, and he would make a lot of sales. It's something that his father did, and he passed it on to his son, and he got very, very good at it. So when it came time to cast Lock, Stock, and Two Smoking Barrels, Guy Ritchie needed somebody with those skills, and Jason was the perfect fit because he had lived it.
And apparently in the audition, what happened was Guy Ritchie said, "Sell me this stolen watch." And Jason Statham did what he had actually done in real life and convinced him to buy this hot watch. And it was a done deal at that point. Jason Statham, by the year 2000, had already lived like 1,000 lives, and he'd had all these different jobs, he has all these different talents, but then he hooks up with Guy Ritchie. He makes Lock, Stock, and Two Smoking Barrels, and then he follows it up with Snatch. And playing Turkish in that movie is like one of his most quotable, fun, off-the-wall roles. In a movie that's filled with personality, you still remember Jason Statham and how great he is, and I just love seeing him punch people. Jason Statham's career was really heating up in Hollywood, and John Carpenter was gonna make Ghosts of Mars. So he said, you know what, I'm gonna cast Jason Statham, he's a huge talent, and the movie studio was like, sorry, he's not famous enough yet. So Jason Statham got replaced as the lead in Ghosts of Mars because he wasn't famous enough, and he ended up being a different character in the film, and his first name was Jericho.
With all Ghosts of Mars was not a box office hit, Jason Statham undeniably made an impression on the French-Hong Kongese duo 2002's brand new franchise, The Transporter.
All he has to do, he has to deliver the package. So he has to sustain the life of whatever's in that package so he can deliver it, and his job's done in the right way. You know, he may disagree with it, but you know, that's what he has to do. And one day he looks in the bag.
The Transporter was Jason Statham's first lead role. His character is the title of the movie. And I mean, in the scheme of things, this is coming really early in his career because he just has this like gritty, real-lifeness about him. And so the transporter is Frank Martin, who is doing just that. He's moving stuff around. But I mean, things go horribly wrong, and he's transporting goods that the bad guys really want, and Jason Statham is the only thing that stands in their way. So when you make a movie like that, you need a person playing the role who really is a threat. Jason Statham is not a big person, yet his personality is so large and his muscles are so large that he really works in these roles, even when guys that have like a foot on him, height-wise, like could have been threatening, like not with Jason. The transporter was also Jason Statham's first opportunity to do his own stunts. So he really showed his stuff on this movie and has become really noteworthy in Hollywood for having the physical capability of putting all these roles on just effortlessly.
He's one of those very stoic, quiet guys that has his own sort of moral code, and I think there's a lot to be said for that. I mean, even guys, girls, they all like someone who's strong. He's a very internal sort of guy, and he gets the job done. You know, he can cope with things physically. He tries to not put too much of a violent pressure on situations. He'd rather talk his way out of a situation, and there's a lot of respect sort of due for the people that can control those tricky environments, especially when you're dealing with crooks and criminals.
As Jason became more and more successful, he began to have more power when it came to expressing his opinions on movies. For example, in The Transporter, there was a shot in the trailer where his character deflects a missile with a tea tray, but Jason thought it was not believable, that no one would buy it, so it is not in the finished movie.
Hollywood is never concerned with giving you too much of a good thing, so they asked Jason Statham, will you please come back for The Transporter 2? And even though it had just been a couple years since the last one came out, everybody was like, this is happening. And it actually is Jason Statham's favorite movie in the series.
And now we start with the action.
Jason Statham's movies are not always super well received by the critics, but audiences love them. Because, I mean, they're pretty simplistic. They're about this character that he's kind of gruff and probably misunderstood, and he's punching people and kicking them and stuff. Jason Statham's always great. And so his movies often become franchises, whether he wants them to or not. So he did Transporter 3, because people just couldn't get enough of this character. Like, Frank just brings something from one place to another, and things go horribly wrong, and it's a really simple premise, but Jason Statham does really, really well with those things, and he makes them very watchable, entertaining, injects the right amount of humor. He's got it all balanced out.
The most rewarding part about making an action film is, you know, the different challenges and skills that you have to learn along the way to try and do a decent enough job and, make all the big stunts believable.
Jason Statham was not thrilled that I was directing when he wanted this amazing Chinese director, martial arts director, to direct the fights. But I was, no, I'm not going to direct the fights. Corey will direct the fight. I mean, I'll be here, but that's definitely the Corey feeling, everything. And he was rehearsing the fights with Corey, so he felt comfortable. And we also had a good time. And, it's sort of like, we became friends.
Director Jason Statham was very funny because he's very complete. The guy is so physical, like he wants to do everything, all his every stance and so on. That you're really cool when you see these guys training every day and so on. Very, very, very hard to be on the top and to be very sharp with his body. When you see the shape of his body in the film is so incredible.
If Hollywood is remaking a classic action movie or a classic robbery movie, Jason Statham is on their speed dial. So in 2003, The Italian Job was a big movie to take on. And so they were like, we have to have Jason Statham and also the Mini Coopers. Those are basically the recipe for success here. He wasn't the main character in that film. I guess Mark Wahlberg was, whatever. But Jason Statham is the one that I remember because every time he shows up, he's giving you that Jason Statham thing. It doesn't change a lot from movie to movie, but it's just always good. I mean, if he wanted to steal something from me, I'd just give it to him.
I really wanted to do something that was absolutely undiluted and a little bit crazy and lots of fun. And this sort of rang all the bells for all the different notes. So that's why.
I love Crank. Not like the drug, but the movie that Jason Statham is in. Because, like, what a crazy premise. I could totally imagine these screenwriters coming up with this idea of a bad guy who gets injected with something terrible, and when his heart rate gets too low and he gets too calm, he will die, being like a thing you're like, no one in Hollywood will ever do this. No one will ever take this role. It's too edgy, there's too many gross things in the script. It's too weird, it's upsetting on several levels, there's a sex scene in it that's really weirdly memorable. Oh yeah, Jason Statham will do it. Jason Statham just wants to prove that he can pull off all this stuff and be one of the world's premier action stars. He can make us laugh, he can do tons of things physically that like robots wouldn't be able to do, and he actually makes it believable.
You know, I think because he doesn't have the sort of formal acting background, that he is from the streets and he does have this like raw underdog feel to him. But he's also very experienced with this kind of action type of movie, that he's so specific when it comes to just the smallest little, turning a certain way or raising the gun, or he's very, he's just really like detail oriented.
When Jason looks back on all the action scenes he's done in his movies, there's one that's particularly nerve-wracking, and it was the helicopter scene in the movie Crank. He was literally hanging out of a helicopter in the sky. It wasn't a green screen situation, and he says even thinking about it now, he gets a little bit nervous. That one was intense.
Crank is also really funny, and up to that point, Jason Statham was concerned that he wasn't funny and that as an actor, like, he couldn't pull it off. And the director actually had great advice for him. He said, you just be yourself and let the dialogue be funny. And he took that advice into later roles where he was cast in actually straight up comedies like Spy, and it works every time. He has a great sense of who he is, and he lets the dialogue do the work.
Jason Statham, the guy was unbelievable. I mean, he did all of his own stunts. Jason just brings a reality to, like, Hitman. I mean, he grew up in North London, or maybe it's East London or South London, whatever the badass part of London is.
Southeast London.
He grew up there.
North.
And he's a real tough guy. He's a man's man. He's a beer drinking, girl chasing kind of guy, and that's who Chuck Chelios is. So he bought, just a reality, this character.
Forbidden to resort to any martial arts assets to differentiate from previous work, Jason Statham went training with an ex-Navy SEAL for that upcoming post-industrial car race job.
The thing that appealed to me mostly was the fact, as Paul describes it, it's rec tech. I mean, it's very low sheen. There's nothing polished and futuristic about it. I mean, these machines are built by the crooks and the criminals within the prison walls. So, there's wires hanging out, there's, everything is just done in a practical way.
Hollywood was trying to figure out how to remake Death Race, which was a really big deal when the first version came out. And it went through so many different versions when they were trying to remake it. So like Tom Cruise was attached, and they were trying to figure out how the CG was gonna work and make it really amazing. And then eventually they settled on Jason Statham playing the role of Frankenstein. The movie was terrible, but Jason Statham is so good. And at that point in his career, he'd done a lot of work, like learning how to drive, and he'd done tons of stunts, so he brought a lot to Death Race that no one else could have. Not even Tom Cruise, honestly.
I really like working with Jason, I really do. We have a lot of fun. I love, he helps me out a lot too. It's my first movie. He's there to remind me, like, just take it slow, he gets me sometimes, like, breathe and just relax, So it's really cool working with him. He's a trip. He really is a sweetheart too,
That's the best shot I've ever done. Is it camera?
2010 was a pivotal year. A new decade with a bit of nostalgia from legendary action megastars and loyal war mercenaries. With an initial budget of $82 million, The Expendables grossed $274 million worldwide. Prestigious.
This is a big movie, a big cast,
big sequences and, you know, some tough action. Yeah, people are getting dirty and busted up, and people get put to sleep in a good way. Yeah, there's some great action.
Sylvester Stallone had a brilliant idea. Why don't we get together the greatest, biggest, most important action movie stars in movie history and put them in a movie together? And thus The Expendables was born. It was really impressive that he included Jason Statham. And Jason Statham had to have been completely bowled over by that, because he has often talked about what a huge influence Sylvester Stallone was on his work and who he wanted to be in movies. He is a pure action guy, but at the same time, he's very funny. He's very smart. In order to appear so natural on camera, you have to be incredibly good, because there are plenty of people that would get on camera and mess up all of the stuff that he has to think about in every movie he does.
4 Rambos, 6 Rockies. Mr. Stallone is the one that you look to when you talk about an action hero.
And so when he was cast as Lee Christmas, the rest of the world was like, yep, he belongs there, alongside all of these other mega famous, mega amazing stars like Bruce Willis, Jean-Claude Van Damme. Like, everyone that has starred in the Expendables series is an important person in the realm of action movies, hands down.
I really like the concept, you know, a bunch of, you know, regular guys with all these sort of insecurities and problems of their own, and at the same time, when they're put in a situation where they need to focus and kick, as they say over here, they can all do that. So yeah, it's a testosterone-fueled lineup, as you'll probably find out when you see the motley crew that Sly assembled.
Because of his background as a martial artist and an athlete, Jason often does a lot of his own stunts, and they usually go off without a hitch. He's great at it. There was one big exception, though. The movie was The Expendables 3, and they were shooting in Bulgaria. It's a scene where Jason's driving a car, and the brakes malfunctioned, and the car ended up crashing into the Black Sea. And luckily, Jason was able to escape, and he wasn't badly hurt, but it was a very close call.
After a 15-year development, Jason Statham became the mechanic. He goes on to collaborate again with Donald Sutherland.
If you got a remake that needs a certain personality type, you call Jason Statham, because the mechanic was a really big deal in the 70s, and Hollywood thought, like, oh yeah, he's mean, he can do it. So the mechanic was an interesting update to the old movie, and it was like, yeah, this was the only person in Hollywood that could have taken this job, like so many of Jason Statham's other movies.
Jason's got the ultimate compliment from Stallone when Stallone asked him to star in the movie Homefront, which he had originally written, Stallone did, as a vehicle for himself, but he wanted Jason to do it instead.
Glad you're still alive, Beverly. Oh! Fucking girly wanker. Sorry about that. Nice work, Cooper.
Wow. Is that a compliment?
Always on board for a challenge, Jason Statham's character Rick Ford is now a top agent who must let Melissa McCarthy's Susan Cooper desk-bound CIA employee volunteer to prevent a worldwide disaster in Spy. Director and screenwriter Paul Feig chiefly tailored Jason's character for him.
Well, it is a comedy. You get to share a few silly scenes with Melissa McCarthy. Things start to change in the way they sort of come out. Yeah, I must say, it's so different to anything I've done before, and I think that's why I'm just enjoying it so much. Yeah, we're having a scream.
Spy was a big departure for Jason Statham. It was a big mainstream comedy. It's directed by Paul Feig, who did Bridesmaids, and he was actually a huge Jason Statham fan. He had seen all of his movies. He told one interview he even saw the bad ones, so he's a super fan. And he brought Jason into the movie, and he gave him one really important bit of advice. He said, don't try to be funny. Just play it straight and trust that it will be funny, and it was.
When I met Jason the first time, I was really nervous because, like, I know the persona, so I was like, is he gonna be tough and is he gonna punch me or something? And he was the friendliest guy, just breaking into this big smile. We had the greatest hour meeting talking and just never looked back. And he was so delightful on the set, and he just had the most fun doing these ridiculous lines that we gave him, and he went for it, and he didn't try to be funny, which that's the key to any comedy. Don't try to be funny. Play it dead serious, and he did, and he just nailed it. And he's a wonderful, wonderful guy. Really one of my favorite people in the world.
He was like the greatest toy to just watch, this really tough, really good actor that just came into kind of a different genre and a different world, and he was so game for it. And Paul loved giving him, he's incredibly prepared, he's always right there, and then Paul would be like, yeah, we're not actually gonna say any of this. Can you say this? And then hand him an insane monologue that literally was like a 4-minute thing, and he would just do it. And I ruined a lot of takes because I find it really hard to not break, and I don't break that easily, but when he delivers stuff so seriously.
What do Dominic Toretto and Deckard Shaw have in common? Jason Statham's reformed villain was seeking revenge for his brother in the full-speed franchise Fast and Furious.
Fast and the Furious was not missing a lot. They were like, we should add Jason Statham to this franchise because we are the premier franchise for movies about just like going fast and messing stuff up, and we have to have Jason Statham in it if we're gonna be legit. So he gets cast in this movie. I really think that at the point where a lot of people thought the Fast and the Furious franchise would have ended, Jason Statham comes in. And The Rock is following right behind him. Jason Statham just shows up and brings what he brings all the time. Like, he handles the comedy, but he's just always so much fun to watch. He doesn't back down, even if it's against someone like The Rock, who is almost literally twice his size. And he just is great. He holds his own. Like, I love watching him because I feel like, in a way, he's a normal guy who is made extraordinary by his just belief in himself. I just think he has confidence.
The spin-off Fast and Furious Presents Hobbs and Shaw marked his production credit debut.
Shaw is a guy who has very sort of strong principles, but he's not a bad guy. He sees things in a very black and white way, and there's no sort of grey area. And if you land in the wrong side of that area, you get dealt with in a particular way.
He's such a lovely guy. I didn't expect it with Jason, because he's this tough guy and all of that. But in reality, he's just one of the kindest people.
When he's not working, Jason is quite an adrenaline junkie. He loves things like wakeboarding and jet skiing. He'll do all kinds of crazy tricks, surfing, things like that. And there's one thing he hasn't tried yet, but that he's dying to do, which is put on one of those wingsuits and then just jump off a mountain and fly down. He says it seems like the perfect combination of living and dying at the same time.
Jason Statham was in The Meg in 2018, and this is like a mega shark. And it was so big, and it was prehistoric, or whatever it was. Jason Statham is the only one that could get that shark to explode into a million pieces and sink back down to the depths of the ocean, back where it came from.
To prepare for his role as a former naval captain in the movie The Meg, Jason spent time swimming with sharks in Fiji. He didn't have to do that. They could have just CGI'd those sharks, but Jason wanted to get up close and personal with these sharks, especially since he was making a movie about a killer shark.
Felony and cinema collided in Guy Ritchie's improvisational working method Operation Fortune, Ruse de Guerre. The spy action comedy brought Statham's go-to guy again.
Jason Statham and Guy Ritchie is just a magical combination, and they worked together for the 5th time in Operation Fortune, which is another movie that plays off of Jason Statham's ability to do amazing stunts, but also tell a joke and be kind of lighthearted, and especially be surrounded by people who are nuts. So that's like a real ensemble type movie, just like Guy Ritchie's other movies with Jason Statham, and it is pretty much the same result.
After 2 disappointing box office sequels with The Meg 2 and Expendables 4 in 2023, Jason Statham came back in full force the following year as Adam Clay in The Beekeeper.
In 2003, Jason's handsome face was all over British television. He did a series of commercials for the Kit Kat brand chocolate bar. And the premise of the commercials was that Jason was what they call a break philosopher. So he would explain the virtues of taking a break to have a chocolate bar. And who better to take a break with, I think, than Jason Statham? Jason Statham met his future wife, Rosie Huntington-Whiteley, at a party in 2009, and the chemistry between them was instant. Rosie later said that she was drawn to him because, yes, he's handsome and charismatic, but it was really his personality that sealed the deal. She found him grounded and humble and really, really fun. For a lot of years, Jason Statham was one of those names you would hear floated when people were speculating on who would be the next James Bond. And he was always very flattered by it. He always said he would love to do it. He always paid compliments to Daniel Craig. You could tell he kind of lit up at the idea of it.
In a career spanning over 2 decades, Jason Statham's courteous and athletic upbringing really prepared him to be placed on both sides of the law in flurry and fast-paced blockbusters, as well as more amusing projects. His opponents stand no chance.
Excellent. Do it again.